Alright guys, so here we are, back on our little Go Devil 4-cylinder. And where I'm at right now is I've got water pump is off. I've got the generator and starter off. The transmission cover, something's been living in there. Not that I really need to do because it's a simple enough design, but I labeled a couple of the wires and got everything out of the way. I'm going to leave the cap and rotor on, but I believe I am a couple bolts away from pulling this thing out of its cradle, and we're going to go hit this thing with a pressure washer. Wow, check it out. Engine is out of its cradle, sitting on the ground, and this is as what I expected. I figured this thing was just going to be just like the input shaft of a transmission, and that's all that it is. I was originally going to leave the bell housing on it after seeing how much crud is in there. I don't think I'm gonna go ahead and pop this off, find a different spot to chain to, and we're gonna go get this thing clean. so we're back in the garage real quick. I'm gonna hit this with another round of pressure washing. Because it still super needs it, but it's getting kind of dark and I don't want to be that neighbor. It's 8 o'clock at night, and I think I'm gonna let this thing soak around with some degreaser for a little bit. But I mean, I'm already getting some dramatic differences. You can actually, if it weren't all wet and I had a better camera, read everything. Look, there's even an old plate buried underneath all that grease. But I mean, in some spots it's still so thick, like out here on this bracket. But I'm out of time for the night, so this is as far as we're going with it. When we jump back, this thing will be all spick and span, and we'll actually give it a good once over. Actually, like check this thing out since it's not covered in oil, and maybe do some decoding, figure out what year it is, and all that jazz. Bow! 3 degreasing sessions and 3 pressure washing sessions later, this thing is finally as clean as I'm gonna get it. There's still a little bit of crud down here in some of the castings, but that's way good enough for me. I just wanted to show you a few kind of unique features of this thing. There's nothing really, I say, unique about the distributor, other than the fact that it sticks out of the side of the block. It's got an older style dipstick in it. That's nothing crazy, kind of like old semis would, where the filler neck and the dipstick are a single piece. The head is a really unique feature of this. Obviously, as I've been saying, this is a Go Devil Flathead, and what that means is the head on here is pretty much just a solid, thick piece of cast iron, and it's pretty much only the combustion chambers, basically, of a regular head. There's no valves or any moving parts in the head of this engine. It's literally just the combustion chamber, and the camshaft is actually down here, and the lifters are behind this little panel right here, and your valves that are usually in the head are actually in the block, and they go upwards into the combustion chamber of the head when they open. Another unique thing to this engine, not necessarily this engine only, but a lot of old engines or carbureted engines, is air actually coming through a carburetor as the fuel atomizes actually cools the air so much that it doesn't atomize properly, and a lot of times for emissions and heat reasons, they actually tie the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold together, and that's exactly what this scenario is if you look, this is the intake manifold, your carburetor, and then this is your exhaust manifold wrapping around it through the back, but they're also bolted together right here, and there's a little valve in here, and I'm assuming this will allow the intake to pull in some of the excess exhaust as well, or act as a breaker of some sort. Actually, I'm not exactly sure what that valve is for, to be honest. Those are just kind of assumptions. This is actually your oil pump, which is external, obviously. Usually those are internal. And this really cool looking thing is your fuel pump. It's kind of like super steampunky, but it really just screws together this little bell and then kicks sideways. This is actually seized on there. I'm going to try and get it off because that's grody. That's not going to let this thing run. But again, yeah, this case comes off, and then your lifters, you have access to your lifters through the side of the block. And I think that's about all that's really unique to this thing, to be honest. That's about it. So like I said, this thing is buried thick in some crud. That's crazy, but it's super cool. This thing does have a generator instead of an alternator. I'm going to assume it's probably like 6 volt, maybe 9 volt, probably 6, considering it's from the 40s. Nothing different about the starter. Water pump. Nothing crazy either. It's just, oop, it's rebuildable as I lose my bolts. And that's just the access panel for the bell housing for the transmission. The clutch is, you know, just like a standard modern clutch, basically. But that's it. This thing is super cool. We're gonna throw some gaskets and a tune-up on this thing and get it fired up. Another kind of unique feature about this, I guess, is old engines like this actually didn't have boots on the spark plug side. They ran just open like that, so people were probably getting zapped all the time. That's about it. Like I said, it's got all the Willys castings, your fire in order, all the information you need about this thing is just cast right into it. Plain Jane, easy to see and read. Another thing, I believe these will. I think I hit my button and stopped recording. One thing that I believe these things are supposed to have that this doesn't, believe it or not, a lot of old Flathead engines actually didn't have oil filters. I think these are actually supposed to. I see a lot of them kind of mounted about right here. They're a replacement internal element filter, kind of like a lot of modern ones are actually. But I think it's actually supposed to tie in either right here or in one of these spots. But I think it's this spot right here and another spot on the other side of the engine. But I'm not 100% sure. They may have just removed it because this thing was just doing field work. It wasn't out in action. There wasn't in a vehicle for a long time. But yeah, that's about all I got on this thing. So here soon, not on this episode, because I still got a lot of work to do. I did actually take the effort to pressure wash the stand here as well. I'm gonna work on these wire ends, get all this stuff cleaned up, see what works and what doesn't, and we're gonna get this thing fired up. So stay tuned for future. I'm gonna blind myself. All right, so hold on. All right, now they're not being blinded, my lord. That's all I got for you in this episode. In up and coming episodes, we're gonna get this thing running. I got some front end work to do on the F100. I'm hoping to get plates on the Willys soon so we can do some more driving on that thing. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, that like, leave a comment, ask some questions. Anything you need to know, want to know, anything you want to see, leave a comment. Other than that, hoping everyone has a fantastic weekend. Deuces.